Well, hello, everyone. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Today on the podcast, we are going to do something that is going to shock and appall some of our more liberal viewers. We're going to talk about the good things that Donald Trump has done while he has been president of the United States. And I have often been accused of shilling for Donald Trump or helping him in this election cycle. And my response is always the same. I am critical of the Democratic Party because I would like the Democratic Party to be better. I have been a lifelong Democrat. I have voted Democrat in every presidential election that I have been eligible to vote for. And I would like there to be something that Jordan Peterson once described as a healthy tension. A good society exists with a healthy tension between both sides, the left and right, pushing and pulling on each other and forcing each other to be better and more coherent. And what we have right now is a Democratic Party that has gone completely insane. And so I don't recognize it as the Democratic Party that I voted for in the past. And I find that very troubling because if we don't have two parties with healthy tension, we don't have much of a democratic republic anymore. And so I am very critical of the Democrats. And I used to not understand why people liked Donald Trump. And I kind of do now. I get it. I understand it. I don't love Donald Trump like some people do. But I understand why people voted for him. And I understand why they will again. And so I'm going to try and explain that to some of the more liberal viewers who don't understand the entire thing. I think it's very important here that we're going to separate Donald Trump into two categories right now. What we're going to do is we're going to try and separate the policy from the personality, which is very difficult to do. Donald Trump, his personality, I still find grating at times. He's just not very presidential. I understand why people don't like that. But let's talk about his actual policy, things that he has actually done while he's been president that are good. And I'm going to start off by by putting this caveat on this, which is to say, these are all things that I actually like that he has done. And at the end, we might talk about some things that he's done that other people might like that I don't necessarily like. But we're just going to go through this list. It's actually a good list. When you're giving him a grade policy-wise, I'd give him a solid B. His presidential policy has not been too terrible, in my opinion, obviously. So what was the first thing he did that I liked? Donald Trump moved the United States Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. He did what Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama all said they would do, but they did not actually do. And this was fantastic. This was one of the first things that he did as president that I said was a great thing to do. It recognizes the fundamental truth on the ground, which is that Israel is a sovereign nation. Sovereign nations have the right to choose their own capital. Jerusalem has been and will always be the capital of Israel. And it not moving the United States Embassy there was ridiculous. It was always ridiculous. The idea that moving our embassy to Jerusalem would somehow spoil peace talks with the Palestinians is just not true because Jerusalem has never been on the table, ever. Israel's not going to give it up. And so it's silly to think that was ever spoiling anything. And let's talk about, speaking of peace between Israel and the Palestinians, which is not going to happen anytime soon because Palestine is run by a terrorist organization. Donald Trump he organized, he negotiated, and then signed into effect the most important Middle East peace deal in a quarter of a century. And the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain both normalized relations with Israel. If Donald Trump was any other person, alive who did this, he would have won a Nobel Peace Prize. It is insane, actually, that he did not win a Nobel Peace Prize for this. This is gigantic because what you're finding is that all of the neighbors of Israel now are looking towards signing these peace deals and normalizing relations with Israel. That means they're able to trade and travel with that country, which is something they have never done before. Because what people now realize is that the driving factor in the Middle East conflict is actually not Israel and Palestine. That's actually not the main focus of tension in the Middle East. The main focus of tension in the Middle East is between Iran and everyone else. And everyone on the ground recognizes that Israel is actually a better ally than some of our Muslim neighbors who come from a different sect of Islam than we do. And this basically comes from another good thing that Donald Trump did, which we'll get into later, why this was able to happen. But it was gigantic, and no one covered it. It was insane. The idea that the mainstream media took this, would put it up for 5 minutes, and then it just disappeared, as if this wasn't gigantic and historic. It was insane. But that was something he did that I actually liked foreign policy-wise, and everyone should like. The idea that there are countries for the first time in over 25 years that have normalized relations with Israel is a gigantic deal. Then we're moving on. The Trump tax cuts. Well, certain people say that they're bad because the tax cuts went disproportionately to the rich. Well, I have something to tell you guys. The rich disproportionately pay the taxes. And here's a fun fact that most people don't know. The top 10% of earners in the country pay 70% of all the taxes. The 10%, the top 10% pay 70% of the entire budget for the United States. And people talk about they don't pay their fair share. The top 10% pay more than our fair share of taxes. We're paying for everyone else. And so, yes, it went disproportionately to the top because the top pays disproportionate amount of taxes. And guess what? But here's something else. 65% of Americans paid lower taxes. That is according to New York Times reporting. 65% of Americans paid lower taxes under Trump. 6% have paid more taxes, and the rest remain neutral. So you either got a tax cut or your taxes remained relatively flat. But 65% of Americans who paid less in taxes, those are the 65% that actually pay taxes. The ones that remain neutral are the people who don't pay taxes already. So the majority of, if you took the percentage of people in America who actually pay taxes, which, by the way, people who pay income taxes, less than 50% of America, then the people who actually pay taxes, almost all of them paid less in taxes. This is huge because, as you know, Democrats get in office, your taxes will go up. That is without a doubt. Joe Biden keeps saying your taxes are not going to go up, but the first thing he said he's going to do is repeal the Trump tax cuts, which means taxes go up for everyone right away. Then he wants to add trillions of dollars in spending programs. How are you going to pay for that if you don't raise taxes? I would love to know because it's just impossible. He's saying, we're going to raise the corporate tax and that'll take care of itself. No, it won't. It absolutely will not. There's not an economist alive who says that he's going to make enough money with his tax plan to pay for any of these garbage programs. So that's just a lie. Trump tax cuts. Put it on the list. Middle East peace, Trump tax cuts. Two excellent things. How about immigration? What was his main driving force in his campaign? Build the wall. And you know what? Donald Trump, for all the flack people have given him about not building the wall, let's talk about what he has done. Donald Trump has built 216 miles of wall. There are 339 miles that are currently under construction right now, and 183 miles that are in the pre-construction phase. Some people will discredit this by saying he hasn't built any new wall. What he's done is he's replacing that old wall with a new wall, but he hasn't actually built a new wall. A lot of the border is already covered by a wall. But let's talk about the wall that they're covered by and the people who say, well, he's not actually built. There's only been 8 miles of new wall that have been built, and he's just replacing the old wall. Well, let's look at that old wall. Here we go. How about this? Take a look at this. So here, look at that right there. Here is what hundreds of miles of border wall look like. That's not really a wall at all. That's a vehicle barrier. You can easily walk over this. If you're a 90-year-old woman with a walker, you can get around this wall. This is what hundreds of miles of the border wall that have been replaced look like. For those who are just listening to the audio, imagine almost a completely empty field with basically one 2x4 laying across it. That's what we're looking at right now. How about this? This is what other sections of the wall look like. A little bit more complicated, that's for sure. But that's wire mesh. All they do is cut holes in this, and they walk right through. They're This is what a lot of the border has been replaced by. And let's look at what he's replacing it with. That is a 30-foot tall, very difficult to climb border wall. Now, you can get over this. There have been videos of people who have climbed this wall. If I had to, I could probably climb that wall. The difference is that most people can't. So the people who come across the border, unless they're young men, are going to have a very difficult time climbing that wall. And a border wall, by the way, is completely necessary. Now, I don't know if this border wall is necessary, this $10 billion, 30-foot tall iron wall that Donald Trump wants to build, but a border wall would be nice on the southern border for a variety of reasons we won't get into right now. You could do basically the same thing that they have in parts of Israel, where they have an electronic monitoring system on the border, which would probably be a little bit cheaper, maybe a little less unsightly, and have a similar effect. But the idea, one, that walls don't work is ridiculous. They put up a wall in San Diego. It reduced border crossings by 90%. Or that it's unnecessary or somehow racist, like a wall is racist. It's just ridiculous. So build the wall. He's doing it. It's slow and steady, but people have fought him on it every step of the way, so it's kind of easy to see why that would be the case. How about judges? This is one of his other main promises. He's going to appoint conservative judges to the federal judiciary. Donald Trump, to this point in his presidency, has appointed more federal judges than any president in recent history. To this point in his presidency, more federal judges. We're not talking about Supreme Court picks here. We're talking about federal judges, just in general. He has appointed more than any president in recent history. If you look at the numbers, I'm trying to remember exactly where I got these from, but the amount that he has placed is rivaling what Barack Obama did in 8 years already. He's done a great job with, and part of this is because the Democrats got rid of the filibuster for judicial nominees. Harry Reid blew up the filibuster for judicial nominees, and therefore, basically, if you have a simple majority, you can place judges. And so, easy for Republicans to now do that. It was a bad idea at the time, still a bad idea, but what are you going to do? Those are the rules of the game we're playing right now. Moving on. Rolling back the regulatory state. Donald Trump has rolled back more regulations than any president. This can be good. This can be bad, depending on how you look at things. He's rolled back a lot of environmental protection regulations, as well as a lot of business regulations. Again, some people would not like that. I actually think that that's mostly a good thing, mostly. But if you're for Donald Trump, then this is something that you wanted, and this is something that he promised and delivered, which is good. How about the stuff that everyone agrees is good? He renegotiated NAFTA, for example. Everyone agrees that's an improvement. Joe Biden said that's an improvement. And, okay, the North American Free Trade Agreement got better. That's good. Everyone should like that. Here are two things that people don't like that I actually do. He got out of the Paris Climate Accords and the Iran deal. Well, that's fantastic. Those are the Paris Climate Accords in particular. At first, I liked the Iran deal, but when you really dig deep into it, it was not good. And we'll get into that in just 1 second. But the Paris Climate Accords, were just ridiculous. They are nonsensical. They placed an undue burden on the United States to change while basically allowing other countries to pollute freely, basically put us on the back foot economically, while making almost zero difference in the long-term outcome of the climate. It basically was a way to hamstring the United States economy under the guise of environmentalism and people who are for the environment, which is everyone, by the way. They said, oh, these are going to save our dying planet. No, it really wasn't. All it was doing was costing us money. That's all it was doing. While India and China get to pump hundreds of millions of tons of carbon into the air, and we were trying to power our entire economy with a leaf or something. And so it's just ridiculous. It was a good thing we got out of it. And as for the Iran deal, well, hey, you know what? The Iran deal had one good purpose. And the good purpose of the Iran deal right now was to set up peace in the Middle East, because everyone recognized it was so bad that it actually forced everyone else to come together and create peace, because we were giving Iran too much power in the region. We just basically sent them oodles and oodles of monies. We sent them pallets of cash to a government which is funding terrorism around the world, so they could they could delay their nuclear program, kind of. We can't have inspectors in their weapons facilities, so they're kind of delaying their nuclear program. But it was it basically, the day that Donald Trump pulled out, they said, well, we're restarting our nuclear reactors. Our nuclear centrifuges, whatever it was. And then immediately. So they didn't delay anything. They got it up and going in about a day, and it did nothing except empower our enemies. So it was a bad deal. A bad deal all around. Then he's done things, and here's a couple things that he's done that I actually don't like, but that other people do. He campaigned as an isolationist. He's basically a libertarian on foreign policy. This is actually one of the big things that I don't like about the Libertarian Party. I think their foreign policy is awful, but he's an isolationist. He pulled all the troops out of Afghanistan. He's trying to draw down. He's pulled troops out of various different places. And, okay, he's the only president in a very long time that hasn't started a new war, so we should give him some credit for that. But I actually don't agree with the drawing down of troops in the Middle East, but he's done it. He said he would do it, and he did it. So there are some people who really like that. Other people really like his tell it like it is kind of style, that say whatever he wants off the cuff kind of thing that he has going on. I don't like the way that he speaks sometimes. I think he's funny sometimes, but most of the time I would like my president to be presidential. So one of the things, I don't care who you are, I do not care at all. One of the things you cannot say about Obama is that he was not articulate or well-spoken, or that he conducted himself with some level of respectability. You don't have to like what he was saying. You don't have to agree with his policies, but he was presidential, and Donald Trump lacks that. But some people like that. Some people like the idea that he's up there just almost an everyman, which is weird because he's worth a lot of money, regardless of how much debt he has. The man lives a lifestyle of the very wealthy. But he connects with regular voters in a way that other political candidates do not. And people enjoy that. People like that. So when you're listing off things that Donald Trump has done, and he has done well, connecting with voters is one of them. And that other giant list of things is, some of those are pretty legit. If you're someone like me and you follow politics fairly closely, which I do, then I look at some of the things he's done and I say those are pretty great. I could make a list of things he's done poorly, and that would also be fairly long. It's the way any presidency is. I could do the same with Obama. There's a giant list of things Obama did that I don't like, but I could also make a list of things he did that I do like. And but the point of this video is to help people understand some of the reasons why people like Donald Trump. And as you can tell, there are quite a few. There are some policy things that he has done that have been tremendous. Let's just real quick recap them all. We have Middle East peace. That seems kind of important. We have tax cuts, which are fantastic. He's building the wall. He's appointing judges. He's rolling back the regulatory state, renegotiating our international deals, whether it comes to NAFTA or the Paris Climate Accords or the Iran deal. He's drawn down troops, which is what every president says they'll do, but no one actually does. And for all the faults in his way of speaking, he connects with the voters because he does shoot from the hip often. You can say that about him. He is off the cuff, and he will tell you what's on his mind, which, good and bad, some people love. But just listen to that list. Listen to the list and understand that there are reasons to vote for Donald Trump besides the caricature reasons that certain people would like you to believe, that 65 million people voted for Donald Trump because they're xenophobic and or racist. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed the list. I know I have a lot of more conservative listeners, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the list talking about why Donald Trump is fantastic. But for my liberal listeners out there, I hope that maybe you can gain a little bit of understanding as to why some people like Donald Trump. And so you don't just assume the worst in every person with a Trump 2020 sign in their yard or sticker on their car. We are going to leave it there for the day. My name is Tyler Chrestman. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you next time.